So welcome back, everybody, to the third and final day of our initial virtual meeting. So, so welcome to everybody around the globe. We're back into a global session, so appreciate those people who are staying up late, those people who are getting up early, and those lucky people in the middle who, for this, it's quite a nice time of day. So again, the sessions will be recorded. They are being recorded right now. Again, please use your real name in the Zoom profile. I can see a 00. I don't know who that is. Could be 007. We don't know. Please keep microphones, cameras off unless we ask you for questions or comments. And again, please tweet away if you need to. So to get us kicked off, we'll go through what we plan to try and cover today. So we're going to hear some keynotes from the perspective of one of our key donors and a key NARES partner. We're going to talk about EIB within the One CG process so that we understand the genetic innovation initiatives and where the work of EIB fits within that context. And then finally, we will have our second open house for those who are able to stay for that and are interested to contribute. So this continues some of the discussions that we had on day one and enables people to talk to some of the other modules that they didn't get a chance to speak to a couple of days ago. So to start, I'd like to hand over to two of my colleagues, Eduardo and Agnes, who are going to give us just a couple of quick reflections from the discussions that we had in the two different groups yesterday. So the Americas and Africa group and the Asia and Africa afternoon group. So I'm going to go ladies first. So Agnes, could you kick us off with just a couple of minutes of key reflections from yesterday?
Thank you so much, Sarah, and hi, everyone. Yesterday's session was quite exciting in many aspects. And I think my key takeout was what Michael talked about as far as change is concerned. And he said, change is not easy, but we have to be willing to take a step into the dark and move forward. And after that statement, it was demonstrated by our various partners. And I liked the talk by Joyce and our colleague from Karo, Kenya. And at the beginning, she talked about the partnership with EIB. They were quite apprehensive at the beginning because they didn't know what to expect, but they were willing to take that step into the dark and move forward. And some of the things that came out of this have come out of this partnership so far. They have done the program digitization, which is something that was a challenge before. They've done some capacity building in collaboration with EIB in the effort of modernizing their breeding programs. Infrastructure support. They also talked about the QTL, the quality assurance, which is something they didn't have at the beginning. And also adoption of genotyping. And the list could go on and on. But my key highlight was at the beginning, they were not so sure what the partnership would mean, but they were willing to give it a trial. Again, the other thing was on ERI, our partners, the CG that talked about One Rice, the One Rice strategy. Again, bringing different CGs together towards one goal. And they talked about the challenges they've gone through and the steps that they've been able to achieve. Again, borrowing from what Michael talked about, we have to be willing to really take a step in the dark and move forward. And maybe that's what I'd leave us with, that we have to be willing to really take a risk as much as change is not easy, but we can always reap benefits once we try. Thank you.
Thank you, Agnes, for those reflections. Now I'll hand over to Eduardo for a couple of comments.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Sorry for not turning my camera on, but I'm one of those in early shifts. But hello, everyone. Indeed, I mean, yesterday was a great day. And, you know, it's always a bit long, 3 hours, but I think we had some good learnings. We actually started the day with Jan sharing some of the impact stories and progress and some of the struggles that are required to achieve change, and how some of those challenges also EIB faces them, and we try to convert them into actual actions so we can improve our service to our stakeholders. And we also refer to the 6 funder request and how to drive positive change. And also one of the successes that I think everyone can see in the system is that the mindset is changing. Then Stefan, came with some nice presentation on how to achieve change, how plant breeding has been changing in the last decades, and how change management is a key component to achieve those, I guess, the new way of the CG wants to run, and how motivation to change and the ability to change are also something to consider for the breeding leads and the managers, the difficulties of this change curve, and how leadership, management, and communication need to come together to achieve those changes. We had some great partners presenting, like NARES in Uganda, some success stories of driving changes, development of policies that achieve those changes. And, the life of a breeder also presented, on trying to understand all this complex setting that the breeder has to navigate, and how it's also not easy for a breeder to change certain things, not sometimes because he or she doesn't want to, but just because it's a complex world. So we had Hugo from SIP with Bird showing how they have achieved the change of something key in the testing networks and the experimental designs in the analytics. And well, I think we learned also from the breakout sessions how the partners see the things changing and what they have learned and in what direction they are going. So I think some of the key learnings is that, sir. I mean, the change is not easy, but our partners are finding the way and in very innovative ways to achieve that better genetic gains and better variety turnover that the donors are interested in. I guess I'll stop there before I go.
Okay, thanks, Eduardo, and thank you for getting up for us. Okay, so we'll move forwards now to our keynotes for today. So we're interested in hearing the perspectives from the broader community. We can't go very far alone. We go much further together. And so for EIB and the CG, partnerships are fundamental to what we do and really trying to deliver on a lot of the objectives that we have. And we have the honor today of starting off with 2 keynotes from fundamental partners. One is a keynote from Sarah Schmidt from GIZ in Germany, one of the key donors who contributes greatly to the CG portfolio, and Marian Quain, who's the Deputy Director for CSIR in Ghana and is one of the key partners in West Africa. So Sarah, I understand you're not going to use a PowerPoint. Marian, I believe, is. So Sarah, are you ready to speak? And I'll stop sharing so that we can see you on screen.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, so I'm not going to use a PowerPoint. You'll have to listen to me. As Sarah said, so my name is Sarah Schmidt. I work for GIZ in Germany. And sometimes there's a confusion what GIZ and BMZ are. So GIZ is working for BMZ. And BMZ is a German Ministry for Foreign Development. So that means that we are in the end accountable to the German taxpayer, which is a bit different from other donors maybe. So first of all, I want to say it's really great to hear all the success stories and learnings at the EIB, and I'm really looking forward to have in-person meetings again so that I can get to know some of you. I'm with GIZ now for 1 year. I haven't met a single person live, so I'm really looking forward to that. But it's great to see all the progress that you're already having. So as I said, BMZ or GIZ is one of the 5 Props to Hunger donors. The others are Crops to End Hunger group. So that's the Gates Foundation, as you all know, USAID, FCDO, and ACAR. Crops to End Hunger is all about one single big goal. And that goal is to have better varieties in farmers' fields faster. And I think we can all agree on this one goal. Everybody at the CG is probably having the same goal. And this is just another way basically of saying we want to have higher rates of genetic gain and a lower area weighted age of the varieties. Basically, it's the same as saying we want to have better varieties in farmers' fields faster. So what does the better varieties mean? So these are varieties that are more nutritious, varieties that are better adapted to climate change, so adapted to drought, heat, submergence, extreme weather events. It's also varieties that need less fertilizer and less pesticides, so less external inputs. It's varieties that have quality traits that are important for producers, but also for the supply chain, for transporters, for millers, and of course for consumers. It's also varieties that provide new income opportunities for women and youth. So all these and much more, of course, are better varieties. And I think that's also reflected a lot in the CG portfolio. There are so many different breeding pipelines and breeding programs. And I hope we can find a way to have better varieties in farmers' fields faster. So in farmers' fields means, first of all, that it reaches farmers' fields. That means that farmers know about these seeds, that also women and other vulnerable groups are reached by the seeds, that there is enough quality seeds for the new varieties, and that these new varieties perform the same under farmer management as they do on the station. So that requires a lot more testing in farmers' fields. And you've heard a lot about the 6 funders' requests. And the 6 funders' requests are ways to reach this one goal of having better varieties in farmers' fields faster. So maybe you already know them by heart, but to develop pipeline investment cases, to incentivize the management and staff to deliver higher rates of genetic gain, to develop strategic plans for delivering new varieties and quantitatively optimize breeding pipelines, implement shared services, and build NARES CG breeding networks. These are all ways to reach the goal of having better varieties in farmers' fields faster. And I noticed, so in the 1 year that I'm with Crops to End Hunger, I've noticed that there's a lot of confusion about who and what is eligible for Crops to End Hunger funds. So as Jan said yesterday, Crops to End Hunger funds are for single investments to transition breeding programs to be more effective and to deliver better varieties faster. They are not funds for breeding operations or personnel, although sometimes that's required. To make this whole process more transparent, we are currently working on Crops to End Hunger funding guidelines to make this more clear what is eligible and what is not eligible. One thing that is very important, all the investments need to be connected to the goal of having better varieties in farmers' fields sooner. And that means to connect this, you need to have indicators that can actually, because this is a very long-term goal, to have higher rates of genetic gain, or having the varieties in farmers' fields at a larger area. It's also very high goals. So these indicators need to be related to the breeder's equation. I think that's very important. So having 40 plots instead of 20 plots is not a suitable indicator to show that the breeding program is getting better and more effective at delivering varieties to farmers' fields. So I think these are some of the things that will come with the guidelines, and also the investments need to be sustainable. And sustainable means if you invest in irrigation or in new machinery, you need to show that for the next 10 years, somebody will be there to maintain them, spare pieces will be available. So to make sure that this is a long-term investment, although it's a single investment, but it should be long-term profit from these investments. So ultimately, what we want with the Crops to End Hunger donor group is to have breeding pipelines that can solve certain problems in a given region. Let's say you want to you want to solve malnutrition among women in West Africa. So then you have different breeding pipelines that you can look at. All these breeding pipelines have a costing that is very transparent. So you can compare the price, the reach, and the delivery time of the different breeding pipelines and choose, for example, I don't know, let's say you can choose between, and I'm making this up, biofortified maize or potatoes that need very little external inputs, or beans that are mainly grown by women. So you can choose between the different breeding pipelines. You know what they cost, what it costs to produce a certain, to breed a new variety, and to have that delivered into farmers' fields. And that's the ultimate goal of Crops to End Hunger. And that's continued in the genetic innovation initiatives. So that's a logical continuation of Crops to End Hunger. Nevertheless, these Crops to End Hunger funds, at least for a while, will run in parallel with the initiatives. So that's still an option, and we will work very, very closely with the initiatives to make sure that there's no double funding, and that it's all complementary. And yeah, that's being said, I'm really happy to be here. It would be even more fun to see you in person, and I'm happy to hand over to the NARES now. Back to you, Sarah.
Sarah. Marian, are you ready to present?
Yes, I'm ready. Can I share my screen?
You should be able to, yeah.
I hope you see my screen now.
Yes, we see everything beautifully. Thank you.
So thank you very much for this opportunity to share as NARES. I've listed what I'll be focusing on for this talk. And we are with the CSIR Crops Research Institute in Ghana. The institute is in the Ashanti region in Kumasi, to be precise, in Ghana, West Africa. And for us to be able to deliver properly to all our stakeholders, we have 7 outstations across the various agroecological regions in the country. And this helps us ensure that the technologies we are developing, the products and the varieties, can serve the various agroecological regions in the country, as well as the sub-region. We have an aerial view of some of our research fields on station in Kumasi. We have our vision and our mission as an institute. We are looking at developing and disseminating demand-driven technologies and building capacities for sustainable food and industrial crop production to enhance livelihoods. We have a tall list of crops that we are working on, food crops, with a couple of industrial crops also listed. For our breeding programs, we as an organization, we are the leading agricultural research institution in the country and in the sub-region. In West Africa, we are the regional center of excellence for breeding in RTBs. Our breeding approach is multidisciplinary, looking at the high number of staff that we have, over 500 staff. And we use a bottom-up approach for our research, so to ensure that all our stakeholders and end users are well represented, and the products who have that benefit will be very beneficial to them. With this, we've been able to release more than 150 crop varieties over the years. Currently, you would agree with me that globally, the food production is being heavily affected by climate change, and sub-Saharan Africa suffering very much from it. In Ghana, our agriculture is mainly rain-fed, and if we talk of irrigation, only about 2%, if not less, of our agriculture is under irrigation. So we're looking at the situation where in a few years, agricultural production was going to be problematic because we are relying on rain-fed agriculture. The rain patterns are now not dependable. So we need to develop drought-tolerant crops that we can grow for a very long time. And our approach is to have climate resilient crops for all our food crops. And these crops, they should be able to grow in the absence of extended periods without rain. So to achieve this, we are looking at modernizing agriculture. We can't go on as we've been. We have to modernize agriculture using the systems approach that will bring a combination of the various approaches that will help us achieve. And EIB has come in handy to help us with the modernization so that we can have a continuous improvement on our breeding programs. We don't want to be left out on what is happening elsewhere globally. So this will ensure the partnership with EIB will also ensure that our station infrastructure equipment is improved and we have the personnel trained to maintain our infrastructure and to routinely improve on our breeding programs. If we do this, we will ensure that it will ensure that we have the genetic gains on our various crops. It will improve livelihood. It will improve food security, and income will be improved as well. With the collaboration that we are having with EIB, I would say that so far we have established MOU. Some assessments have been completed, some are ongoing, and digitization of our breeding program has started for our rice program, and infrastructure investment case has been developed. So going forward, we are looking at having our system digitized so that the breeding program can improve. And we're looking at having platforms for our research data so that we don't lose data and we can improve on our systems easily. We already have very little irrigation in place, and we are looking at having the irrigation improved and a weather station established so that we can monitor and meet the demands of our stakeholders. We want to do our work uninterrupted by power supply, so solar electricity backup systems is one thing we are looking at so that we can support the national grid and ensure that we don't lose out in our research. Seed is critical for breeding. So we are looking at upgrading our seed storage so that we will have efficient seed system and for supply as well as for the breeders' work. And then we need to upgrade our field machinery so that it will help with the drudgery that comes with the works that we've been doing so far. We really need an upgrade on the field machinery. And we're also looking at training for the maintenance of our equipment, our infrastructure, as well as the breeding program. So going forward, we are looking to the stage where our system will really be transformed. So we'll have improved food, water, and land use systems by 2030. We're part of this global network for the delivery systems. So we are looking at having a state-of-the-art research facility in place, and this should be should support resilient cropping system to support all our food crops, and it should be done in a way that it is self-sustaining, that investment will improve and we can have the system running smoothly. With that, we're looking at an efficient seed delivery system to meet all the various demands. And we also hope that we're going to have robust business models developed to harness all these improvements and transformation that we are looking up to. Thank you very much for this time, and I acknowledge the inputs that we have had from the various organizations and programs to support our progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marian, and thank you very much, Sarah, for those very interesting perspectives. Let me share my screen again. Here we go. Okay, so now we're going to move into the section where we really look at how the activities that we currently conduct under EIB map to the One CGIAR initiatives. And to explore moving further as we move into 2022 and beyond, how One CG will help the breeding community deliver on all of the objectives and the shared objectives that we have. So we listened yesterday at some comments that we use too many acronyms. We live in acronym world. And so we're going to hear presentations from ABI, which is the Accelerated Breeding Initiative, and Claire is going to share some of those perspectives. We'll then hear a presentation from Matty Dumont, who will talk about the market intelligence and product profiling called MIP. And then finally, we'll hear from Young Wha Lee, who will talk to us about the network for enabling tools, technologies, and shared services called N4X, which some people had difficulty pronouncing yesterday. And so Claire, are you ready to share your presentation?
Yes, I am. Just a minute. Okay. Just a minute, I don't see it. Okay, could Adam share it? Sorry. Okay. Sarah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I sent it to Adam, possibly he could share it. I'm now having trouble seeing it.
I think I've got it as a backup. Let me find it.
Okay.
Okay, you see it, Claire?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, everybody. My name is Clare Mukansi. I work as a global breeding lead for Common Bean at the Alliance of Bioversity International and CtEH. I've been working with Marian Quain as a deputy in developing this initiative, accelerated breeding initiative, meeting farmers' needs with nutritious climate resilient crops. So my talk today is really going to be about how this initiative is going to work with the breeding community starting next year. Next slide, please. So just to confirm or to just follow up and say whatever we've been talking about since yesterday, the last 2 days, really puts the ABI puts it in perspective, combines it into one. And we are going to collaborate with all the initiatives, GI initiatives, to increase the rate of genetic gain that is delivered to farmers in form of farmer preferred varieties, where we are talking about a 1.5% genetic gain for productivity by 2030, while we also have other targets that are being set up for other traits. So the outcomes here, like we need to reduce the area weighted average of varieties that are currently being grown to less than 15 years by 2030. So those are the major key outcomes for the ABI. Next slide, please, Sarah. And the ABI is going to work through 5 work packages to be able to deliver those outcomes. And these work packages are refocused, where we have refocused products. So using information or insights from market intelligence, the MIP initiative, we try to focus breeding pipelines on the most relevant market segments. The most relevant meaning that they will have impact, the 5 impact areas: poverty, environment, gender, and so on. Then reorganize. The second work package will be reorganizing ensuring that we have coordinated approaches to trade discovery, trade deployment, population improvement, and variety validation. So this work package is really about how do we organize ourselves as a CGI, as well as the national programs, as well as the private sector, to be able to work together in a more coordinated fashion and having really teams that are addressing each of these areas, but closely linked to ensure that we actually address the issues in the different breeding pipelines. Then the third work package is about transformation, really looking at a critical look at the current networks, the different crop networks, CGIAR, NARES, SME networks, to ensure that they are able to deliver the genetic gains. So trying to increase the flow of funding. Of course, we were hearing that NARES were not getting enough funding, yet they have an opportunity to actually make more contributions. So trying to look at the comparative advantage across the different partners and ensure that they are all supported in the end to be able to deliver and actually own the process and own the products that come out of this. Then we have the fourth work package that is about traits, trying to look at what kind of traits are required for the product profiles that have been developed, the kind of products that we would like to develop. Are there novel traits that we need to try and identify, understand, and be able to deploy? So of course, looking at best practices, modern technologies, such as the use of haplotypes for highly valuable traits, of course, guided by the product profiles. Then the last work package is the breeding, which is really about optimizing the pipelines, optimizing the breeding process itself, using genetic tools, understanding the production, the target production environment, looking at how the process itself, whether it is safe, it is efficient, and of course, leveraging whatever that is coming from the services, the N4TTS, that complicated name, using the tools that are being promoted and using them in the best way forward for each crop, NARES, SME unique needs. Yeah. So go to the next. So coming back to the principal outcomes again, just to break up those outcomes, really look at what is going to be expected by 2024, at least. What are we really aiming for the ABI? So we'd like to see breeding pipelines that are oriented towards specific market segments. So we'd like to see breeding pipelines that are using a revised organization framework that provides operational clarity and effectiveness. So this is about the teams, the people, the breeding networks, implementing stronger partnership models between the CGIAR and NARES SMEs. We have examples of some successful ones, but also trying to really look at them critically, whatever is existing, what can be improved to ensure that at the end of the day, we have very smooth and strong partnerships. We would like to see breeding pipelines that are supported by dedicated discovery and trade deployment. So we'd like to see that the breeding programs are well supported with the science, understanding the trait that is being targeted, understanding what is needed, what are the facilities, what are the technology that is required to ensure that actually we have the needed traits in the right backgrounds. Then we'd like to see breeding pipelines that have increased rate of gain in the form of farmer preferred varieties. So the varieties that we'll be developing have to be having at least visible genetic gain. So it's genetic gain on farm. Then we'd like to see at least breeding pipelines that provide candidate varieties a step change in performance under farmers' conditions. So this is not only about yield or productivity, but also like to see some traits that are probably unique but that are demanded by our customers. So it could be something to do with nutrition, it could be something to do with gender-specific trait, it could be something required by the processing market, but at least a step change based on what is coming from the seed systems, the feedback that is coming back from the seed systems, from the market intelligence, and being able to address those kind of traits and actually being able to report some genetic gain for those traits. Next slide. So moving forward, we have been able to do a little bit of priority setting together with the market intelligence and we'd like to see at least by 2024, so that each individual breeding pipeline is able to pursue at least 1 to 2 very specific impacts and targeting well-defined target products, target group of target market segments, as well as targeting specific product profiles. And then collectively, the breeding pipelines, which we'll call maybe a portfolio of breeding pipelines, is able to have a greatest total benefit across the 5 impact areas. So putting all the breeding pipelines, if we have all the breeding pipelines across the CG and we're addressing, and maybe each crop is looking at 1 to 2 very specific impacts, but putting them together, we're able to actually see very high impacts in nutrition, poverty reduction, gender equity, climate adaptation and mitigation, and environmental sustainability. Next slide. So the question now comes, how is EIB moving forward? What is going to be EIB's function? I think you've listened from I think Sarah, I think this morning, just this, what she just said right now, is that really what Crop to End Hunger, as well as EIB is doing, is really very complementary with what the Accelerated Breeding Initiative is also planning to do. So the EIB functions are going to join up with the center, NARES breeding in activities into the Accelerated Breeding Initiative, because you've already heard about the modules, everything that is talked about in EIB is within the ABI. They actually sound the same. So EIB function actually fit within that design and management, optimizing breeding schemes, genotyping, operation and phenotyping, informatics, as well as the cross BI and the CGIL's networks, adoption of the two. So you'll also be hearing from the next speakers, such as the N40S and MIP, that actually everything that we talk about in EIB is part and parcel of ABI. So I think that's the best I can say right now on the question about how does EIB continue within ABI. I think that's all I had to talk about today. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Claire. And well done for coping with a technical challenge. Matty, are you ready to share your presentation?
Hi, Sarah. Yes, I'm ready.
Excellent. Take it away.
So as Sarah mentioned, there is this global competition for the best acronym of a new CGIAR initiative, and we're going for the cutest one, the most cutest one, MIPI, Market Intelligence and Products Profiling Initiative. So we have a few team members here.
Could you just go on to presentation?
Sorry?
You're not in presentation mode.
Oh, I'm sharing my screen. I'll try it again.
Thank you.
I'll just share my screen and then move to the presentation. Can you now see?
Perfect. That's brilliant. Thank you.
It's working. All right. Okay. So as I said, we are trying to go for the cutest acronym, MIPI. Sounds a bit like a soft toy. So Market Intelligence and Product Profiling Initiatives. As I mentioned, we have a few team members here in the meeting. So during the Q&A, if they have further clarifications, please feel free to reach out and help us in presenting this initiative. So we have Vivian there, she's the deputy lead. Jason Donovan and Peter Coldrake have also been very active in this initiative. So what is this initiative about? Why do we need such an initiative first? When we look at CGIAR, genetic innovation systems, they're often, decision-making is often unilateral and technology-driven, supply-driven. When we go to the fields, we see a high average age of varieties, a slow varietal turnover. And when we look at product profile design, we often see it's a bit biased towards agronomic and stress tolerance traits, and is sometimes missing out opportunities for contributing to other impact areas. As Claire already mentioned, we have 5 impact areas that CGIAR is really actively looking at. And we also see that social scientists and NARES are insufficiently empowered in product profile design. And when we look at market intelligence, first of all, it's very limited it's often fragmented and commodity specific. So these are kind of challenges we want to tackle in this initiative. Our vision is really focused on CGIAR and its partners and donors to maximize investment returns in breeding seed systems and other initiatives through better market intelligence. And for that, we really need to go beyond the classic definition of market intelligence. So I provided a definition there. It's strategic information on future crops, market segments, and trade priorities aligned to the needs and preferences of farmers, agribusiness, and consumers. And it can be incorporated in product profiles, pipeline investment cases, and seed system strategies. And the idea there is that it's not just telling what the market and where it wants and where the market is going, but we want to have the right information there that helps genetic innovation systems contribute to the 5 impact areas. And so it means we need to go beyond classic preference studies, but we need to look at future trends. Where are the markets going? Also, we need to look at the commodity, but also its byproducts. Where is it going? Because it has implications on sustainability, climate change, adaptation, mitigation. We need to look at diets, urbanization, labor and land markets, because they tell us where markets are going and what kind of traits are going to become important in the future. We need to understand the economies, where they are in their structural transformation. And also policies, what do policymakers want? Where do they want to go? And so forth. So market intelligence is really going to become a more holistic definition. So we have 5 work packages. The first one is really where we try to collect all those future forward-looking building blocks. We call it market intelligence, but as I said, we will look beyond what is classically known as market intelligence. In second work package, we will incorporate that best evidence into concrete product profile designs, which are blueprints for future varieties. We have a third work package where we go beyond the product profiles, and we look at other conditions that need to be in place for varietal adoption. Maybe we need a big information campaign. Think of golden rice. Golden rice is not well known yet among consumers, and maybe we need to inform consumers before such a product becomes interesting for farmers. And then we have a fourth one, and that is really a clear and a literal follow-up on what the donors are asking, those 6 request pipeline investment cases. We will build all that information into concrete pipeline investment cases. We will build a investor dashboard that donors can use to target their investments. And finally, we'll bring everything together into a work package where we're going to try to scale that institutional change we are creating, and going to follow up through monitoring, evaluation, and impact assessment. So this is in a nutshell the theory of change. So how does EIB and its related services fit and function within the initiative? So right now, where are we? EIB currently identified 372 what we would call product market segments aligned to 318 pipelines. But when we look at those market segments, they're typically crop producers, environment technology focused. And the challenge and task for MIPI will be to identify consumer value chain impact challenge focused market segments. We really want to start with an approach where we start from global impact challenges, translate them into breedable targets regionally, and then connect that to the existing pipelines and market segments that have already been defined. So when we look at product profiles, the use is still limited. Some centers are more advanced than others. Some NARES are very advanced, while others are still lagging behind. But when we look at the product profiles, they're typically focused on a few traits: agronomic stress resilience. Sometimes grain quality traits are involved, but it's a bit rarer. And they often target specific food security targets and poverty reduction. And so the big task in MIPI will be to develop institutional standards and processes to make sure product profile design is done by a transdisciplinary team, regionally focused on multiple crops, and a team that consists of CGIAR, NARES, and SMEs. And finally, those product profiles then will also target other impact areas: nutrition, gender equality. We have a very close connection with Harvest Plus, with the gender platform. opportunities for youth, social inclusion, and other impact areas. So what is the big challenge ahead of us? So as I already mentioned, EIB has done an amazing job already. They have done a very complete product market segmentation, but it's a bit supply driven and focused on the current present. It's in fact an indication of the current footprints of the current pipelines that CGIAR is currently invested in. So the idea is that we will need to broaden that, and we need to start identifying global impact challenges and translate them into concrete market segments that are end market based, consumer based, also connect to certain value chains, and then are also connected to impact challenge. So they're more demand driven, more future focused, and we need to connect both. That will be one of the biggest and most important tasks, to make sure that we can expand those pipelines, we can identify market segments that we hadn't identified before. We will be able to move into markets that maybe we haven't never thought of before. So this is the idea, that we broaden this market segmentation approach. So we expect that this will lead to higher adoption, because by identifying better the market segments, we expect that those market segments will have more targeted products and adopt faster. Also, shorter adoption lags, that's also one of our expectations. So, and this will, of course, have obvious implications on impacts. And then, as Claire already mentioned, the idea is that we broaden our impacts, diversify them, not only make them bigger, but also diversify them. If you look at that pie diagram, this represents, in a very rough way, where we currently focus with our current CGIAR breeding programs. This is just a fictional example, where we mostly focus on food security and poverty, two of the 5 impact areas. You see the green and the orange is dominant, but where we want to go is a system where we not only increase our impacts overall, but also we diversify them better along those 5 impact areas. And this pie diagram, of course, is going to differ from region to region, from crop to crop, and it all depends on where the impact challenges bring us, where the priorities are. So thanks. This was in a nutshell. During the Q&A, we can get more insights from other team members. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Matty. I'm not sure you have the cutest acronym, but we'll have to have a poll on that later. Young Wha, are you able to sharing your screen, Matty, and then Young Wha can load hers. And while Young Wha does that, please start popping any burning questions that you have into the chat, and then we can kick off with the Q&A shortly after Young Wha finishes. Over to you.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, perfectly.
Great. All right, thank you, everyone. So over the next few minutes, I'll be talking about the Network for Enabling Tools, Technologies, and Services, NFORETS. And at this point, I would like to apologize to everybody for my acronym. I'm the module 5 lead, but over the last few months, I've been leading this initiative with Augusto, who has been my deputy. So the why of the NFORETS initiative is pretty much boils down to that we need to accelerate our breeding efforts. The agricultural sector is a proven driver for the reduction of poverty, but it is a sector that is already impacted by climate change and faster than we have expected. That means we need new seeds quickly. And to breed new seeds quickly, we need modern breeding techniques and operations scaled across the CGIAR's breeding networks. Part of that solution is NFORETS, which institutionalizes services for breeding operations in One CGIAR to support the breeding modernization efforts of the breeding programs. Okay, so NFORETS is composed of 5 work packages, 1 that is focused on better strategy, 3 that is about providing services, and the 5th, which is about implementing and adoption of those services within breeding programs. And I will just sort of go through them one by one briefly. The first work package is called Strategic Modernization, and this is the one which is about supporting improved strategy for reading modernization. So in this work package, we would support reading simulations for optimized reading pipeline design, budget forecasting for improving operational cost effectiveness, and for also the ability to manage your reading product portfolio as a whole. And also we would look strategically across what the CG NARES networks and identify those technologies, tools, services that are going to be the most impactful for prioritization for setting up as a service and supporting adoption. The EIB module that probably most closely links to this one is the activities that have been happening in module 2. One thing that you'll see throughout the description of the work packages is that this initiative is probably the initiative that is most closely linked to the current activities of excellence in breeding. And in many cases, every single work package builds on current activities that are happening in EIB, and in most cases expands them. Okay. So work package 2 is called cost-effective shared services. And this is really a buildup of some of the great work that you've seen in module 3 in establishing a global service for genotyping through Intertech. So we would like to expand that model to other kinds of services, and those other services include sequencing, high throughput phenotyping, quality and biochemical testing, as well as biometrics and bioinformatics. The EIB connection here is, of course, module 3 and module 5. Work package 3 is about performance management of consistent and connected operations. And this is where this work package connects a lot to the presentation that you saw a couple of days ago, in my time at least, where Stefan Weber, he gave a presentation about change management. And if we talked mostly about the people element of change management in that talk, but if you remember, he had those 3 cogs, the 3 pillars of change management, and one of them was technical delivery. Was delivery of the change. And this work package is about setting up services that facilitate delivery of change. There are disciplines that can support you in systematically going through a change process and improving your workflows. You're improving your protocols, et cetera, like process management, project management, more intentional communications, trainings, et cetera. And this is the work package that would fund a global service of professionals who would support breeding programs in their continuous improvement efforts in their operations. The other thing that this work package would support is a performance management system. As Stefan said, you can't change what you can't measure. So this is, we have as one of our goals to set up a key indicators and outcomes for measuring our operational and breeding performance and being able to report on them so that we can improve ourselves and also report to our stakeholders. The module that most closely connects to this work package is module 4. Work package 4 is the smarter use of more data. So this is the breeding IT and user support work package. So the goal here is to set up a breeding IT, a global breeding IT organization that will support data management systems that are in use in the CG NARES breeding network, and also to set up a global user support network for the data management system adoption. EIB connection here, module 5 and module 7, adoption and outreach. work package 5, we call it, I'm sorry that we have another acronym there, Innovation Development and Research Exchange. And here, the EIB activities that connect the most are 6 and 7, and also 4. And what we're trying to do here is, this is the implementation of taking all of these modernization services and really normalizing them within your breeding programs with support. This is change management plans, budgets for regionalized capacity building, and project management support in sort of the way that Module 6, Bish's team has been doing for helping breeding programs gain access to different EIB services and integrating them into your continuous improvement process. Okay. So it all kind of breaks down like this. So the work package 1, strategic modernization, that guides informed decisions on how we modernize. And those decisions feed into what kind of services we invest in, whether they're genotyping or project management or data management, and then all of those services will be actively supported in their adoption within your local breeding program context, resulting in a modernized data-driven breeding network that can produce faster climate resilient seeds with SDG impacts. And that is my last slide. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Young Wha. Okay, we'll move to 5 to 10 minutes of questions now in a panel. So if Young Wha, Matty, Claire, anybody else in the initiative teams who's online would like to contribute. We have a very interesting question in the chat from Bharadwaj, which is there's an excessive focus on addressing the needs and desires of consumers, that this reduces the scope for innovation in research. So market orientation is based on reacting to market trends rather than creating them. And he considers that a clear balance on innovation needs to be built in with the breeding programs along with commercial research. So Matty, would you like to tackle that one first?
Yes, I totally agree. And this is clearly built in MIPI, where in 2 places. First of all, our market intelligence module is really going beyond preferences. I think I emphasized that a few times in my presentation. We really want to start from global impact challenges, because some actors don't have a voice, like the environment, the climate, they don't have a voice. And farmers will not necessarily express those interests. Farmers will not tell us they want environmentally friendly products. So as a result, we need to really look at global impact challenges and from there derive priorities. Of course, we need to make sure they're aligned to preferences and needs. We cannot generate products that consumers don't want to eat or farmers do not want to plant. So evidently, preferences are very and extremely important. But we believe that as CGIAR researchers, we need to go beyond just pleasing the markets, which we think is more for commercial businesses. They really want to make profits and need to make sure they deliver what the market wants. And as CGIAR researchers, we need to go beyond that and make sure we address those impact challenges. So I agree with that aspect, and it is incorporated in market intelligence initiative.
Young Wha, would you like to address some of the questions about innovation in that comment?
Yeah, so let's see. So so we do have so I guess this is less about breeding innovation in relation to the product profiles, but one of the things that we try to make clear in the N4X initiative is that part of having these sort of specialized services is that these specialized services, they're not just there to crank out data. They're also the focus units that can work on their own improvement. So if new technologies that you want to bring in, to improve a breeding process, to improve your phenotyping, et cetera. If these focus services would also, it would be a part of their TOR to assess them, work with breeding programs, and to figure out if this is something we want to bring in. And that's inherently forward-looking, right? Like it's not, these are the things that's sort of at the edge of like, we don't know if it's useful, but we need to keep an eye on things and be ready to jump on it if it is. So.
And Claire, from the ABI perspective, would you like to comment how those potential exploratory investigations will be conducted in terms of prioritization of what innovations you may be looking for in terms of application within the breeding programs?
Thanks, Sarah, and thanks for the question. So as I had mentioned that ABI really will be focusing on what has been prioritized. So we will rely on what MIPI has the information that is coming out. And of course, together with breeders, socioeconomics, and the groups that are involved, then be able to address or be able to decide what to focus on based on the information that is coming back. So really, it's demand driven, as you've said, demand driven, but of course demand also we have to have foresight of what is going to happen, what are the trends, and what probably we need to think beyond maybe what the current markets are thinking about, but also use the science and information that we have to really inform the kind of breeding pipelines we will focus on. Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
Okay, thanks, Claire. Sarah Schmidt, you have your hand up for a question or comment?
It's a mix of both. So the comment is 372 market segments is a lot. And so the question, the first part of the question is to Matty. Where are you going to start? I mean, can you do 372 market segments or 318 in 3 years? And the second question goes to Michael and Claire, is like, what are you going to do until you have product profiles? So as Claire just said, I mean, ABI really depends on the product profiles. If it will take a year or two to deliver, what is ABI going to do in the meantime? So these are the two questions. I realize it is a bit provocative, but I would like to hear your thoughts on how the sequencing will work.
Hi, Sarah. Great question. Yeah, it's going to be a very big task. We realize that, but we hope it's the first time we really bring all those breeding programs together, and also all those market intelligence programs in as far as we had those. And we believe that we can gain economies of scale and scope, because if you run a survey, you can cover multiple crops. We can focus on baskets of crops rather than commodities as we did in the past. So we believe that we can do it by focusing on a regional approach, focusing on the regions, and bringing all the crops together. We believe that it's possible, but it will require quite some budget for data collection and very good coordination with other initiatives like Foresight, for example. We really need to get very strong connection with Foresight.
Thanks, Michael. Would you like to come in?
Yeah, I can answer. Good question, Sarah. Thanks very much for that. In terms of how do we respond, it's very much going to be an evolution from our current position. Most of these breeding, so yes, there's 372 market segments that have been identified. There are currently 142 individual breeding pipelines, and most of them each have a product profile today. We've been working, Excellence in Breeding has been working with these programs for some years, and with the work that George Koch had been doing, and now that Peter Koldrak has been doing, many of them have product profiles today. Now, many of them, they need to evolve further, and we're really looking forward to the Market Intelligence and Product Profile Initiative driving that effort. But it won't be a case of sitting back and waiting. I mean, these breeding programs are going today, they're running today, and they're going to continue running with the product profiles that they've got, and it's going to be an evolution. And as that information comes in from MIPI, very cute, Matty, I think so, then we'll increasingly use that information to evolve better and better product profiles.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Moving on, we have another interesting question in the chat when I find it again, which comes from Joseph Bayene, who's asking Matty, how long will it take the team to have adequate information to guide the development of product profiles? The eternal information question.
Very good question. We have the ambition to have decent information on prioritized regions in the first year, at the end of the first year. That's why in our budget, we're really emphasizing that first year, we need to really get very, very fast on track in that first year. And one of the strategies to do that is by benefiting as much as possible from the expertise that is already there and making sure they're involved in the initiative instead, as opposed to hiring new people. Of course, it will be a combination of both. And I like how Michael responded to that question. I agree. This is a gradual approach. We're not starting from scratch. There is already evidence out there. There are product profiles already out there. The idea is just that we gradually switch towards a system where there's this institutional change, where we develop product profiles in a different way, in a more inclusive way, where we gradually take over, gradually refine those product profiles, make them better, and gradually identify new market segments we have not discovered before. We're not going to change everything. We're not going to throw the kid with the bathwater. So this is a gradual approach, and we hope that at the end of the first year, we have a very good first batch of information for prioritized regions where we can have immediate impact on product profiles that can be then be taken up by ABI.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that response. There are other questions coming in on the chat, and I see Peter's got his hands up, but I'm afraid we are going to have to move forwards in the interest of time. So yeah, please keep your questions coming in the chat. We'll collate them and get feedback to them. Peter, if you've got an interesting follow-up comment, please include that in the chat as well. So now, when I share my screen yet again, I'd like to move forward to some of the closing sessions. So Michael, I'd like to hear some of your closing thoughts, please, on what we've heard over the last 3 days. Do you have a presentation, or are you good to talk?
Yeah, I'll just talk, Sarah. I've jotted down a number of points I want to hit on, so I'll jump right in. First of all, I want to give a huge congratulations to the team for putting on a fantastic event. It's really worth taking a step back, I think, to think of what's been achieved this week, and remembering that normally we would have all had to travel for this, some of us from one side of the planet to the other. Our annual meeting, our last 2 in-person meetings had been in Amsterdam. So those coming from Lima or from Los Baños, I mean, it's a long way to travel. And so I really want to congratulate the team under the difficulties of running such a high quality virtual meeting, and done such a great job. And many of you probably wouldn't know, but I then made it even more difficult for them, because during the development phase, I challenged them further to significantly reduce the size of the meeting, or the length of time. I mean, this event has previously filled 3 full days, and with all of the work that's gone on recently with initiatives and all the transition meetings that are happening, we know that there's very heavy meeting load at the moment. So there was an additional challenge, and they've really, I think, done a fantastic job of putting on a great event. So first of all, congratulations. For the progress that we've heard about this week, I'm always so impressed when I hear the stories of CG and NARES breeding programs, the efforts being made to improve and create impact. And as I mentioned in the ASIS session yesterday, and Eduardo mentioned just earlier tonight, or today for you, it's not just the important tangible changes that we're seeing, but also the changes in mindsets and the conversations that are being had about product profiles, market segments, genetic gains, breeding cycle times. I mean, yes, these things were talked about 4 years ago, but not like they are today. And it's just so great to see. There's tremendous enthusiasm for the project of breeding modernisation right now. People are committed, not afraid to contribute, and excited about the impacts that we have on farmers and the communities that they serve. And that's what excellence in breeding is about coming together and contributing and learning from one another across crops and as a whole system. So that's going great, but at the same time, I do acknowledge that there is tension when we're talking about driving change, particularly when you go from talking about it to having to actually implement it. That's where the rubber hits the road, and change brings tension. In both breeding and at the CG at large, we're going through some growing pains right now, and many of you are committed to strong change management principles. That's really great to hear, and we've seen that this week. We've heard from SIP, from EiB, Calero, NARO, and others about their strategies for shepherding change through their organisations. And this gives us a lot of hope that the right minds are committed to the right ideas. And personally, I'm super excited about the changes that are being implemented in breeding programs and in the CG. Listening to the initiative leads discuss their plans just now, I think really adds to this optimism. As one of the initiative leads myself, I know that the initiatives are being designed with the work of breeders and their impacts in mind. First and foremost, that the impacts, like Sarah Schmidt mentioned earlier, there will be changes within One CG, but EIB's role and the services that we've been providing are going to continue, just like Young Wha described. And over time, the format of our delivery may change somewhat, but for partners, the beat will go on. We'll continue to help partners to set a high bar. We'll listen and work hard and provide the services and help and support needed to meet that bar. So I've talked about the move to One CG, and while I'm on that topic, I want to just take a moment to remind people why it is we're going through that particular growing pain. And there are many reasons, but if I try and keep it simple, it's to acknowledge that by coming together, we will achieve more, we will have greater impact, we will leverage investments across crops and regions in a way that we've not been able to before. We will implement best practices throughout the system with an integrated management structure. We will take a high-level view across crops and regions to be able to focus more intensively in areas where we'll have the greatest impact, to do exactly what Sarah Schmidt pointed out is needed, and Matty described how that initiative will take up that challenge, and then breeding to create the products and seed equal then to support the delivery. So in short, we can do things that we quite simply couldn't do as a group of disconnected centres, and there are many other benefits, but just to try and give a very simple explanation as to the why. Now, of course, One CG isn't a silver bullet, but it is certainly worth all the hard work that we're putting into it. So this work, we've also heard a vision of breeding modernisation laid out by important donor GIZ and vital NARES partners, CSIR and Calero and NARO. And we see a lot of commonalities in what they've presented. They and the rest of us are united to face the threats of climate change, of food security, of changing demographics, of degrading ecosystems. And they're determined, as we are all determined, to help breeders do their jobs in the best way they can. The people who have gathered this week are helping to steer the direction of global public breeding. And when we take these hearts and minds and we combine them with the best technologies and practices, we'll be sure to build a legacy that we can all be proud of. So for those, pardon me, excuse me. For those of you that are doing all the hard work, facing all the uncertainties of change, keeping an open mind to new ways of doing things, we at Excellence in Breeding, we really thank you. more importantly, everyone at this event today will play a part in changing the lives of smallholders, of families in the developing world, and of future generations. This work is just so important, and we're having impact. I say it many times, but excellence in breeding can achieve nothing without you. You're the ones that are implementing these things. And so I really do thank you for your attendance this week, and for all your hard work that has been going on and has been described this week. Without the CG and NARES scientists and managers on the ground implementing, without the funders that fund this work, or our various partners with whom we work, we just can't achieve what we have been achieving and what we will continue to. So I really do thank you for your hard work and for joining us this week. It has been an absolute honour to have had your time and attention. I thank you, and we'll see you next week at the Stories of Excellence sessions, and beyond next week as well, as we work together to use breeding as a powerful tool, and that's what it is, for contributing to our world's future. So thank you very much. It's been a real honour. Thanks.